Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Russia wrapped up 20,025, claiming momentum on the battlefield. And to be fair, they did move faster than in 2024. But faster is doing a lot of work there. Russian forces grabbed just under 1% of Ukraine's territory over the entire year while burning through more than 400,000 casualties. That's not blitzkrieg. That's grinding attrition with better marketing. The Kremlin's line is progress. The math says it's a meat grinder with upgraded firmware. What changed wasn't strategy, but method. Russian forces leaned hard into drones, especially battlefield air interdiction. Think less massed armor, more constant pressure from the sky. They expanded the use of fiber optic FPV drones that don't care much about Ukrainian electronic warfare and pushed their range from a few kilometers to dozens. These systems went after supply routes, staging areas, and anything moving behind Ukrainian lines. Russian units followed up with small, sneaky infiltration teams instead of big frontal assaults. It's not elegant, but it did let them inch forward in places like Pokrovsk and Siversk. That said, none of Russia's big-ticket objectives landed. Donetsk and Luhansk weren't fully taken. Kupiansk didn't fall. Buffer zones in Sumy and Kharkiv never materialized. Even Pokrovsk, after months of fighting, remains contested. So if this was supposed to be the year Moscow closed the deal, it ended more like a season finale cliffhanger where the villain monologues and still loses the artifact. Ukraine, meanwhile, wasn't just sitting there absorbing hits. Over the last weeks of December, Kyiv expanded its own long-range strike campaign. Ukrainian drones went deep, sometimes over 100 kilometers, hitting oil depots, substations, ammo dumps, radar sites, and military bases across occupied Ukraine, Crimea, and inside Russia proper. Targets included major energy infrastructure in Krasnodar Krai and Tatarstan, plus logistics hubs that actually matter to Russia's ability to keep the war machine running. This wasn't random fireworks. Ukraine appears to be mirroring Russia's own playbook. Go after sustainment, not symbolism. Cut fuel, disrupt power, force Moscow to defend its rear while trying to attack the front. It's early days, and nobody's pretending this flips the battlefield overnight, but it does force Russia to stretch already stressed air defenses and logistics. And stress is a theme here, because while Russia was pushing drones forward, it was also pushing a lot of missiles and drones backward, toward Ukrainian cities. Over the course of 2025, Moscow launched more than 50,000 long-range drones and nearly 2,000 missiles. Strike packages got bigger and more frequent. Energy grids, ports, rail hubs, especially rail, were prime targets. New Year's strikes alone knocked power out for over 100,000 people. This isn't subtle coercion, it's brute force pressure dressed up as military necessity. Now let's talk about the weirdest moment of the week, the alleged Ukrainian drone attack on Vladimir Putin's residence. According to Moscow, Ukraine launched 90-plus drones at one of Putin's homes in Novgorod Oblast. Russia says it intercepted all of them, presented some debris, drew some lines on a map, and then used the whole thing to threaten retaliation and harden its negotiating stance. The problem is the evidence just doesn't add up. No local footage, no air defense alerts, no eyewitness accounts. The numbers kept changing, and U.S. intelligence assessments later said Ukraine didn't target Putin or his residence at all. Even President Trump, who initially sounded pretty annoyed after hearing Putin's version, publicly cooled off and started questioning the claim. This looks less like a failed assassination attempt and more like a classic Kremlin maneuver. Create a crisis, inject emotion, muddy the waters, and use it to slow-roll talks. Timing matters here. The allegation landed right as U.S.-led negotiations were reportedly nearing completion, with most of the framework agreed and only the hardest pieces, territory and security guarantees, left unresolved. Moscow's response was essentially, "We were attacked. Talks must change." It's vintage Russian political theater, somewhere between Cold War paranoia and modern disinformation speedrun. Diplomatically, Europe didn't blink. European officials dismissed the claim and pushed ahead. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that European leaders would meet in Paris on January 6th to make concrete commitments on protecting Ukraine after any peace deal. That includes continued military support and potential peacekeeping arrangements. The message from Europe is consistent. No deal without teeth. Ukraine's position hasn't shifted either. President Zelensky made clear he's not signing a weak agreement that freezes Russian gains or rewards demands Moscow couldn't achieve militarily. On the ground, Ukrainian soldiers aren't acting like peace is around the corner. Interviews from the front paint a picture of exhaustion, realism, and determination. Less victory parade, more survive and hold. Zooming out, Russia's ability to keep this war going depends increasingly on external lifelines and internal control. On the external side, China quietly received more than 20 shipments of Russian liquefied natural gas in 2025 from projects sanctioned by the US and EU. That's revenue, leverage, and a reminder that sanctions pressure leaks when a major power decides it's inconvenient. Moscow also continues to rely on foreign components and labor, yes, including North Korea, to sustain missile and drone production. Inside Russia, the cracks are showing. Thousands of complaints accidentally published by Russia's own human rights ombudsman revealed allegations of abuse, coercion, forced deployment of medically unfit soldiers, missing personnel, and families begging for information. This isn't the image of national unity Putin sells in speeches. It's closer to late Soviet vibes: quiet resentment, bureaucracy ignoring human cost, and the state insisting everything is fine. Ukraine also showed some creativity on the intelligence front. Kiev revealed it staged the death of Denis Kapustin, a Russian nationalist fighting on Ukraine's side to thwart a Russian assassination plot. Ukrainian intelligence says they identified those involved and redirected the funds meant to kill him back into their own war effort. That's not just counterintelligence, it's psychological warfare with a grin. Meanwhile, power consolidation continues in Moscow. Reporting indicates Igor Sechin, one of Putin's closest allies, has expanded influence over Russia's security services, tightening control over military counterintelligence and defense oversight. This comes as corruption investigations, desertion cases, and theft plague the armed forces. Add to that reports that Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov missed a key Kremlin meeting due to health issues, and you've got a system projecting strength while quietly managing uncertainty. Thanks for being a part of the RH community. Subscribe, leave a positive comment or 5-star review, and most importantly, help build our network by sharing this.